Hello, and welcome to Kathy's Picks Live. If you have watched any of these before, you'll know that I am not Kathy Nelson. I am filling in for her today. My name is Allison Friedman. My business is Arrange Wander Focus, and I have been a member of the Photo Managers and certified for about 4 years. So I'm gonna marshal you through today's presentation, which is an introduction to Mylio and how it is an amazing photo organization hub. It's actually what I use for my own photos, so that is one reason why I think I am your host today. I encourage you throughout the presentation, please ask questions in the chat and we will get to as many as we can. And if you are enjoying these presentations, or if this is your first one, please hit subscribe down below so that you will always be notified for all of the future presentations. And there's some great ones that have already been done that you should go back and take a look at. Today we have JC Figueroa from Mylio Photos. He is the head of customer success. He has a background in underwater photography. He is great at photo organization education, and he is a whiz at media technology. So this is a great combination. And he is going to bring us through Mylio and how Mylio can help people take control of their photo collection and turn it into meaningful stories instead of a digital mess. So JC, if you want to pop on.
Hello.
How are you today, JC?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Excited to be here. Excited to show you guys how to go about creating some calm from the chaos that our photos have become. We're all drowning in photos, so let's stop drowning.
Exactly. We are. I am excited to watch your presentation. I know a lot about Mylio. I use it myself. I work with it with clients, but every single time JC speaks, I learned something new. So I can almost guarantee that all of you watching today will as well. So with that, let's begin.
All right. All right. So as Allison said, we're talking about Mylio Photos today, and she already introduced me, so we'll go past this slide here, and we'll quickly talk about the agenda. We're going to keep it really simple. We're going to talk about 4 things. What is Mylio Photos, right? So explain what the product is. We'll talk about how to gather and organize your photos, and this is both generally how to gather your photos and also how to organize them using Mylio. We'll talk about keeping your memories safe, right? So we gather our photos, we put them all in one place, and we start organizing them. We want to protect that. So we'll talk about that. And the whole point of doing photo organization is so that you can get to those photos fast. And I'll very briefly say, because we'll be talking more about finding photos fast in a bit, but I'll very briefly say that there's a cliche that says, a photo is worth 1,000 words. And it's true, it's a cliche for a reason. I would add that a photo is worth 1,000 words, but only if you can find it. So if you're tired of like opening your phone and doing this scroll of death where you scroll and scroll and maybe you find a photo that you're looking for, we have a better way for you today. So let's get started. What is Mylio Photos? So Mylio is a product that's comprised of 2 parts. There's the software, the application that runs in your devices. There's the actual app on your computer or on your phone or on your tablet. And then there's the Mylio Photos Plus service. And the Mylio Photos Plus service is what enables your devices to communicate with each other and for the library that you create to seamlessly be available anywhere. So it's a cloud independent space for all of your photos and videos to be deposited and for them to be accessible anywhere. It has a fast and intuitive search, and it can really enrich those memories because not only do you have the ability to use Mylio Photos to have a location for your photos, you can enrich those photos by adding more metadata to the photos. Metadata is information about the photo. So if I have a photo and I want more information about the photo, like who's that person there with my mom, or where was this photo taken, or what camera did I use to take this photo. All of that is called metadata, and Mylio has lots of tools that allow you to enhance the metadata on your photos so that you can find them or enrich that memory. It's great to say, look at this great photo I took on the beach. And if you can't tell people where it was taken, then there's no point. Or you take a photo of a dinner plate at a great restaurant, but you can't find that restaurant again. Well, with Mylio Photos, all of that is possible. It's better. It's easy to enrich those memories by adding more metadata. The seamless connectivity of Mylio Photos is that on any device that you install the Mylio Photos application and you log into the same account, you're going to see the exact same library of photos. So you're no longer kind of forced to sit in front of your computer and work for hours and hours on your photos that way. I think this is one of the reasons why people are, they put aside the task of organizing their photos. We have this notion that in order to organize my photos, I'm going to have to sit in front of the computer and spend half my Saturday doing photo organization. I'm only going to get so far. And in many ways, that's true, but it doesn't have to be. With Mylio Photos, you can work on any device. If you're at the dentist waiting for the inevitable, and you're have only your phone, you can open Mylio Photos and do some photo organization, do some face tagging, all kinds of things right there on your photo, and the work right there on your phone. And the work that you do on that device is going to synchronize seamlessly to all of your other devices. So if you open your phone and you create a folder and you move the photos to that folder, when you get to your computer at home, those photos would have been moved to that folder. And I'll show you all this. And then it offers a reliable backup by using something that we call a vault, designating a device as a vault. You can create multiple repositories where your photos are stored in full size, full resolution, and not just your photos, but the organization work that you've done, so that you never lose that progress. And as I mentioned at the top, Mylio is cloud independent. The cloud is optional. So we've become accustomed to our data and our files being uploaded to the cloud and necessitating an internet connection every time we want to access something. With Mylio, that's possible. You can put a repository of your photos on the cloud, but it's not a requirement. Your photos and your media and your organization is under your control. So it's in the devices that you control. It's in your computer. It's in your phone. It's in your external hard drives, and you can see it right there without having to connect to the internet. So if you're on the plane and you pull up that same phone you were using in the dentist's office, you can work on all of your photos on your phone right there in the plane without having to pay $8.99 to connect to a very slow and useless internet. Because Mylio is optimized for portability, we have something called space saver technology. And what that does is it stores a lightweight but fully editable version of your photos, of your files, in every device. So using our space saver technology, something like a phone can house thousands or even hundreds of thousands of photos at taking much less space than the full-size resolution photo, but visually those photos are going to be indistinguishable. As a matter of fact, as I go through the demo today, most of the photos that you're going to be looking at are going to be that optimized image that Mylio applied the space saver technology. I don't have the original files in this computer. They're on an attached hard drive, but I'm not accessing them. And that's one of the reasons why Mylio is so portable, because you can fit a lot more photos in a device that's limited in storage. And it's also why it's so fast. So that's what Mylio is. Let's talk about photos and our media and the idea of gathering and organizing them. And we all know that we tend to have photos everywhere, right? So we might have photos in folders on our computer or on an external hard drive. And then we upgrade our computer and we're not quite sure what to do with the stuff that's in that computer. So we maybe buy an external hard drive and we save all the things that we deem important before we get rid of that old computer. And now we have a hard drive, but we get busy and that hard drive never gets connected to the new computer. So now you have some photos in the hard drive, some photos in your new computer. Of course, we all take photos with our phones. Some of us also take photos with cameras. So we have photos in our phone, photos and memory cards from our cameras. And then we have cloud services. I'm going to try Amazon Photos. I upload a bunch of photos there. I forget about it. Or I might have photos that I uploaded to Facebook or some other social media site. And those photos only exist in that cloud-based device anymore. And I feel that I'm no longer in control of those photos. So Mylio gives you a way of gathering all these photos from all of these different places and locations and bringing them all into one centralized library. And let's look at that first, right? So one of the things that you'll notice if you try Mylio Photos, the first thing that you'll see will be called guided import. And it looks just like this. It looks just like the screen. And in here, you'll notice that there's a single one button click to add photos from a lot of different locations. The pictures folder in your computer is typically a place that your photos get added to. Same with the movies folder or the videos folder in your computer. If you're an Apple user, if you use any Apple device, an iPhone, a tablet, an iPad, a computer, you are likely using Apple Photos. If you use an iPhone, you're using Apple Photos. There is no choice in the matter. So you can add your entire Apple Photos library to Mylio with one click. Same if you're an Android user, adding the photos from an Android device, photos from Facebook or Instagram or a Flickr account. Or you can just choose to take an existing folder. So if you have an existing folder in your computer or an external hard drive, you just click this button and you can start bringing those photos. Same with a memory card. So as you can see, we try to make it as easy as possible for you to import all of those photos. And what you end up with is a library where all of your photos are in one place. And that's what you're looking at right now. And by the way, you are going to be looking at my own personal photo library. It's about 55,000 photos. It's heavily curated. So the reason it's only 55,000, some people might think that's a lot. Some people might think that's not many. But the reason is that number is because my library is heavily curated. I've gone through most of my photos and got rid of the junk and classified them, and I've done a lot of work with them. And you'll see that throughout the presentation. So once you gather all those photos from all these different locations, and you've used the built-in Mylio tools to bring all the photos into one repository, into one common library, you have different views in Mylio or different ways. Is what views are, is different ways to consume that library. Let me give you a brief overview of that here on this slide. So Mylio has a number of views. We have the all photos view. We have something called live calendar. We have the map view, the people view, the albums view, and finally the folders view. And I'm going to go through each one of these views and show you how they're useful. But what I want you to conceptualize right now, before we even get started, is that I'm looking at the same group of photos regardless of what view I'm in. It's just that the photos are being presented in a different way. So let's get started. We'll start with something that everyone is very familiar with, which is the all photos view. This is what you're most accustomed to seeing in your phone, where all of the photos are right there in one group, and you scroll and 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 scroll. And by the way, look how quickly I can scroll through 55,000 photos, and Mylio is keeping up with me and showing me those photos very quickly. I can go from 2024 all the way down to 2008 or 2005, et cetera, et cetera. But this is not the most useful view. There are ways to make a view like this more useful, and we'll talk about that a little later on when we are looking for photos. But this is not my favorite view because it's the scroll thing, right? So I'm going to go to the next view, which is what we call the live calendar. And the live calendar is a view of your photo library organized based on when the photo was taken. So Mali is automatically going to look at the photos that you imported. It's going to look at the creation date on the file. And using that creation date, it's going to organize your photos into a calendar. And right now, that calendar is being presented to me in what we call decade mode. Let's scroll a little bit slower so I don't make you guys dizzy. So there's the 2020s. I can go to the 2010s, so on and so forth. My own library goes back to even before I had digital photos. And I was able to use Mylio to take scanned photos of my, scan the printed photos that I possess and put the correct dates on them. So even my scanned photos are showing in the correct year right here. So I can go all the way to 2003 when my son was born, or 1995 when my daughter was born. I can go into the 90s and 80s when I was in college and high school. And I can go even further back to before I was born and see heirloom photos of my family. There's my dad getting awards from the military, and the only photo I have from my grandma way before I was born. There's mom and dad on the beach, which I never saw in my lifetime, but I have a photo of them, so I believe that it happened. So all of these photos are in one location, and Mylio has given me the tools either automatically by using the creation date on a digital file or by giving me the ability to modify the date to present all of these in a calendar view. And the calendar view is very useful because I can go into any year. So here I can click here on 2018 and it shows me the months of the year. I can click on any one month like May and it shows me the days, any days in the month of May in that year for which there were photos. Mali is going to show me those. And if I click on a particular day, it shows me all the photos that were taken on that day. So here I have May 4, 2018. And if I click on this photo here of my wife, Mylio tells me who the person in the photo is. If I open the information panel, I can find a lot of information about this photo. Right there on top is telling me when it was taken and where it was taken. If I turn on the Face ID, tell me who is in the photo. But right here on the side panel, I have even more information. What camera did I use? Mali is adding smart tags to the photo, telling me this bright is properly exposed. For other photos that might be in front of the water or have trees, so it'll have those automatic smart tags in them. The location of the photo, so on and so forth. So on and on and on, lots of metadata, a lot of information. The other thing that you'll notice about the calendar view are these little dots with little numbers on them. These are called events. And I can click on an event and it takes me to all the photos of an event. So here's my daughter's wedding in 2022. I can click on that and it goes to all of the photos that were pertinent to the event leading up to the actual wedding and then the wedding party. They're all in one place. And you can create events based on a folder or based on a starting and ending time. So if, next Saturday is your niece's birthday party, you can create an event and say Saturday, the 25th, at from 2 to 4 is Sandra's birthday. When you go and take photos and those photos end up in Mylio, especially if you take them with your phone, they automatically end up in Mylio. You'll have an event that says Sandra's birthday. And when you click on it, there'll be all the photos from the party. So that automated organization can really, really help find things that are super important to you. Because from an event, you can create an album and then you can use Mylio to share that album with your friends and family. And we'll show a little bit more about that when we get to the album session. So that's the calendar view, finding photos based on when a photo was taken. The next view is the map view. And in the map view, we find photos based on where a photo was taken. And as you can see, there's a map of the world here. And I can start zooming in on any one area. And the more I zoom in, the more, I didn't mean to click on the thumbnail. The more I zoom in, the more detail I get about that particular area. And this is where I live in the greater Seattle area. So there's lots of photos taken here. I'm going to zoom here into the Olympic Mountains and show you how useful this can be. Oop, I zoomed out. How useful this can be by zooming way in. I'm in one of the map views called topographical view, and the topographical view actually shows me a topography map. And the reason I like this is because I can use it to track my hikes. So here's the trailhead of a hike, and you can see the actual little trail, and I can follow along the way and see where I was. There's my little campsite. So very easily I can track locations of the photos. And there's different views. There's everything that you expect, like a standard street map or a satellite view. And when you take photos with a device that captures geotag data, like a smartphone or a camera that captures GPS data, those photos are automatically going to get populated into this map because Mylio reads the data and it puts them there. For photos that do not have that data, Mylio automatically creates a to-do list of geotag location. So if finding photos based on location is something that is important to you and you want the ability to always find photos that way, you can tag your entire library with geotag data, and it's very easy to do. Down here in the bottom left corner, there's the view on tag section. If I click there, Mylio is going to show me all the photos that don't have geotag data, right? And I can scroll through here and I can see a number of photos that don't have geotag data. So I could select a number of these photos. I know these were all taken in college, right? That whole bunch right there. So I could go ahead and use the map view right next to it and search for Ohio University, where I went to school. And Mylio finds right there in Athens, Ohio. Now, I don't remember exactly where these photos were taken or what part it was. This photo is not part of the group, so let's unselect that one. But I can just generally say this was taken in Athens, Ohio, and the moment I click that, those photos are now geotagged. If I go back to my regular map view and I go to Ohio now, let's zoom all the way out and zoom into the Ohio area, and we'll go down here to Athens, where I went to school. The map is taking a second to repopulate, but we'll keep zooming in, and all of those photos that I just geotagged are right there. I can access them with one click. So it's that easy to geotag your photos and to have them present in a map. I like to look at this map when I'm planning a trip. I'm like, where have I not gone? Where do I want to go in the world that I haven't been? And it looks like Africa and Asia are good candidates for more travel. So that is the map view. The next view is one of Mylio's favorite. A lot of people love this view and they use it. And it makes sense because the thing about photography is that it captures the things that are really the most important in our life. Life is all about experiences and relationships. And with a photo, you can kind of capture and experience something you lived through, good or bad. They're all important. But you can also capture relationships. And the thing about a relationship is, who is this person? Why is this person important in my life? And anyone that is worth remembering, you can tag using the people view. So the people view allows me to create a virtual container of all the photos of any particular individual. So I have now my first granddaughter. She was born recently. I can scroll down here to the letter L. I can just grab this little flag and scroll to the letter L. And there's easiest way to do that. I'm going to show that later when we talk about finding photos fast. But if I scroll to the letter L, I'll find Lucy. And there she is. And Mylio tells me that I have a little over 3,000 photos of Lucy already because my daughter sends me photos of her every single day. And all I have to do is on my phone, I save them right to Mylio. But if I go there, here's every photo that I have of Lucy so far. And I can go all the way back to her first photos and her photos of her being born. And I can, when I'm missing my granddaughter, I can just go and look at photos of her very, very quickly. Now, that's 3,000 photos. I didn't go and tag the face on every single one of those photos, right? That's something that I can do with Mylio. I can turn on face tagging. Mylio puts a little oval around a face, and notice that Mylio is already making a pretty educated guess. His first guess is that it's Lucy, and that's why this photo was already in her container. But doing this on every single photo would be very trying. You don't have to do it that way. You identify a handful of photos or the same face in a handful of photos, 6 to 12 times. And then Mylio is going to learn that face. And the more I confirm those faces, the more the algorithm or the better the algorithm gets at finding faces of the same person. So that's how all the people in my library have come to be, where I can find any photo of any person very, very easily. And we'll talk a little bit more about face tagging, and I'll show you some of those features later on. But I want to move on to the next view, which is the album view. Now, so far we've done calendar, which is finding photos based on when something took place. And we done albums. We done map. I'm all over the place. We done calendar based on when. We done map, photos, finding photos based on where the photo was taken. And we've done people, which is finding photos based on who is in the photo. Albums is kind of the catch-all. It is the what of the questions, right? Finding photos based on what. What is it that I want to make a collection of? And these are collections that you create yourself. Mylio is not automatically going to create albums because you decide what albums you want. But what's great about Mylio albums is that there's a number of features you can have that make those albums very, very useful, more so than with some other applications. Because most applications let you create a collection or an album. Mylio has two particular things that make our album special. One is that you can have nested albums. So just like you can have in your computer, you can have a hierarchy of folders. You can say trips, and then under trips, you can have a refolder. You can say 2024, January, February, March. Just like that, in Mylio albums, you can have a hierarchy. So here I have an album of Miller House, which is the house where we used to live until recently. And within that album, I have 5 sub-albums. So if I open that up, you'll see that there's 5 sub-albums. There's photos of the house before we bought it or when we first bought it. And then there's photos of the house after it was staged. And then there's a comparison album showing before and after photos. And then there's another album photos that I have of that house and an album showing parties that we threw in that house. And these are all virtual, right? So virtual collections means that the same photo can be in multiple albums without you having to duplicate that photo. That is harder to do with folders because a folder is the physical place where a file lives. And a file can really only live in one folder. So if you want the same photo to be in multiple folders, you have to make duplicates of that photo. And that means that you end up with a lot of duplicates, which not only takes more room and you end up with a larger library. If you're wanting to use other views like the people view or the map view, you're going to have multiples of the same photo when you go into those views. The album eliminates that problem by allowing you to create virtual collection where the same photo can be in multiple albums. And then you can go and do something like compare and see photos before and after and all of that. The other thing that's really cool about albums in Mylio is the ability to share those albums. So you'll notice that some of these albums have a regular album icon, but some of them have this little World Wide Web icon with the little globe in blue, that means that these albums have been shared to the internet as a web gallery. So here's an album of photos that we used for Lucy's first birthday. This album, this is my favorite one right there. This album has been shared. If I open up the information panel about the album, one of the things that you'll notice is that that album has been published as a share album. And here's a link. And it's a pretty abstract link. It's not an easy link to remember, and that's intentional. But you can send that link to anyone, to friends, family, anyone that you want to see these photos, and they can go to that link and see the photos. So if I copy that and I open an internet browser, I'll open up Safari right here, and I'm just going to paste that. What I get is an album of all the photos. It's a share gallery of all the photos in that album, and any one of the people that I share this link with can go and look at these photos and download them, etc. You can have a one-click download if you prefer, all of that. So that is all part of the Mylio service. And these share albums are semi-private. What that means is that no one's going to find them if they do a Google search or if they're trying to browse the internet. The photos can only be accessed if you have the link, which is really nice because one of our tenets at Mylio is that privacy is very important, and your photos and your data, not only the media itself, but the information about your media, like people, locations, all of that, that's yours. You should always be in control of it. So when you go to share an album, you have the ability to control what information gets included. You can have something that we call safe share, which if you turn it on, all of the metadata, all that information about the photo is going to be stripped away and not included when it gets posted on the internet. Or if you want to include metadata, you can be very specific about what data you want to include. I want the people tags to be included, or I want just a copyright notice to be included. All of that is customizable when you share in this fashion. So that's albums and the albums view in Mylio. And it's one of my favorites. I use it, as you can see, quite a bit. And last but not least, I'm going to show you the folder view. Now, the folder view is a direct representation of how the media is stored in your computer or in your hard drive, right? A lot of applications, for example, Apple Photos or Lightroom, not Lightroom Classic, but Lightroom. A lot of these applications use what is called a managed library. And the managed library means that your photos get put into this library file, and they're managed by a database. And the only way to access those photos is by going through that application. So using Apple Photos as an example, you cannot see the photos on your phone unless you open the Apple Photos application. And if you have an Apple computer and you link your phone via iCloud to your computer, you cannot go to a folder in your computer to see those photos. You have to open the Apple Photos application. That's what is called a managed library. And there's some advantages to it. Mylio gives you the managed library experience. I can open Mylio and find any photo, but the files, the media is not kept hostage in a library file that you cannot access. You can directly go to any folder in your computer and find the same photos. So in here, I'm going to sort this alphabetically. Right now it's sorted by date created. So I'm sorted alphabetically now. You'll see I have Android photos, which is photos that came from an Android device. Apple Photos, again, photos that came from one of my Apple devices. Mylio Inbox, Mylio Pictures, Test, Trips, and then photos that came from social media, in this case, Facebook. If I split my screen and I open a Finder window, and for those of you that are Windows users, the Finder is similar to Windows Explorer. So if I was on a Windows machine, I would do the same thing with a Windows Explorer window. So if I click here on main media is one of the repositories, one of the hard drives that I told Mylio to make a copy of my library for safekeeping. So if I go there and I go to the Mylio folder, what I'm going to see there is the same thing that I see on my computer. I see Android photos, Apple photos. I see the inbox and Mylio pictures. Under social media, I see Facebook. And then under JC's Mac Studio, I see the test and the trip folders. They're on a subfolders because that's how I originally imported them. I originally imported them through this computer, so they appear that way. But the same thing, if I open test here, I see a bunch of folders. If I open the test folder in my computer, I'm going to see the same folders. If I create a new folder in Mylio, and I click create, that folder appears right there on my hard drive. If I take some photos of Scooter here, and I say, let's move these 3 photos. I'm going to move those photos to a folder. I'm going to look for that folder that I just created. There it is, the photo managers. I'm going to select it. The photos got moved to that folder. There they are, the photo managers with 3 photos of Scooter. If I open this folder in my computer, there's the files. They have been moved. And what's really cool is that I can do the same thing with my phone. Remember, I told you earlier that that I'm not limited to doing things specifically in my computer. I don't have to sit in front of the computer to do my photo organization. I can do it from anywhere. So what I'm doing now is I'm sharing my phone screen. I'm going to put it right here so it's easy to see. And I'm going to go to the same view. At the bottom of my phone, I see the same views that I see on the left side in my computer. So there's the folders view. So I'm going to tap that with my finger. I'm going to go to the same folder, the test folder. And I see the same, I don't know what this folder is. I'm going to delete it. It's annoying me. All right. So I see the same folders here. There's the photo managers folder that I just created on my computer. It's already linked to my phone. But using my phone, I can create another folder. So I'll go here and I'll create a new folder on my phone. I'll call it Photo Managers 2. And notice that that folder gets created in my computer, or in Mylio in my computer. That folder also gets created in the hard drive right there. And if I use my phone to navigate to a photo, so I'm going to go here to this photos of flowers, and I'm going to select 2 photos. I'm going to move those photos to a folder. I'm going to select the folder that I created just now, Photo Managers 2. And I'll say select. Those photos have been moved to that new folder. Photo Managers folder has 2 photos of flowers. You'll notice that in my computer, the Photo Managers 2 folder has 2 photos of flowers. And there's the photo on the computer. There's the photo on my phone and my hard drive. In a little bit, it hasn't caught up yet here, but in a second, those photos will be moved to that hard drive as well. And what's more is that it's not just creating folders or doing that level of organization. Anything that you do on one device is going to appear on the other devices. So if I wanted to go ahead and, for example, rotate this photo using the rotate button in Mylio, when I rotate that photo on the phone, that photo appears rotated on my computer, or vice versa. I'm going to rotate it 3 times in my computer to put it back the way it was. Everything synchronizes. If I want to go ahead and edit that photo in Mylio, maybe I just use a preset and give that photo some vivid colors or change the appearance. Notice that that change happens on my phone as well. And everything that I'm doing in Mylio as far as metadata editing or image editing is non-destructive. So I can always go back. And those changes are, again, replicated and seen across all of the devices. All right, so we did it. We have seen the different Mylio views, the different ways in which Mylio automatically organizes your photos. Let's go back to our presentation here uh, and talk about a little bit more about these organizations and a couple of things. I just want to make sure I cover a few things. So folders we talked about, right? It's the physical location that a file lives in your computer on hard drive, and you can see that in Mylio and manipulate it in Mylio, but you can also see it outside of Mylio. Uh, we know about dates, and one thing that I didn't tell you about is that when you're using dates, and dates are important for the calendar view and because we want to know when something happened. But one of the things that you can do with Mylio is that any photo that you bring into Mylio that has an incorrect date, the best example is scan photos, right? You take a photo of a picture with your phone, or you scan some photos, or you send your photos or film or slides to a scanning service and they come back. They're going to have, the files that you get back are going to have a creation date of when the photo was scanned. You can use Mylio to correct that date. So the first thing that I do is I take any photo that has an incorrect date, whether it's something that I found as I was browsing or I initially knew, and I change those dates to undated. So here's a photo of me as a kid. And if I look at the information of the photo, you'll notice that the date on it, it says undated. That's because the scanning date was incorrect. So I change it to undated. And when you do that, you have the special bucket at the very top view of the calendar that shows you all of your undated photos. And you can see I have 1,551 photos that need the date corrected. I can go into that container and select the photos and correct them. So here's 2 photos of me as a kid. I look to be, I don't know, I'm going to say I'm about 6 years old and I'm not wearing a shirt. It's probably spring or summer in Puerto Rico. So I'm going to, and that's all I know. I don't know the specific day that this photo was taken. All I know is kind of the season and the year. Well, you can use Mylio to correct the date in what we call a fuzzy date, right? I don't know the specific timestamp. If I did, I could select the specific time and date the photo was taken. But if I don't, I can be very flexible and do something like season and year. So in this case, I'm going to say that was, it looks like spring. That was spring of 1975. So we'll go to spring. We'll navigate here to 1975. I hate how long it takes to get to like my birthday or a year when I was 6 years old anymore. You have to scroll a lot more than I used to. So now those photos are no longer in the undated container because I corrected the date. But if I go to 1975 now, and I go into the spring months like March or April, I'm likely going to find that file here somewhere. There it is. I put it in May. So there's the photo of me with the date corrected appearing in the calendar correctly. So correcting dates is pretty easy, Mylio. And you'll notice I did it with 2 photos at a time. You can do it on 1 photo. You can do it on multiple photos, whatever you need to do. All right. We talked about albums. We didn't talk about categories. So I'm going to quickly talk about categories because it is the cornerstone of a feature called spaces. And you've seen a lot of organization and a lot of views in my library. One of the cool things about Mylio is that you can have subviews or a special view of your library. If I go here to more recent years, you'll notice that there's family photos and everything else, but there's also underwater photos because that's my hobby. I'm an underwater photographer. Well, I can switch my Mylio library to a different space. Right now, I'm in what we call the public space. And the public space is, you can see all of the photos in my library that are not marked private, right? One thing that I can do with any one photo, so if I find a photo that I don't want you to see, I can hide that photo. And, it could be many reasons. Maybe you're going through a medical procedure, or, there's something inappropriate about the photo. You can hide that photo, and that marks that photo private. When I'm in my public space, I can see all of my photos except the photos that are marked private. There's other spaces. There's the private space. Take a guess at what you see in that space. Only your private photos. On everything, you see everything. But I've created a different space that allows me to see only my underwater photos. And the way I did that was by assigning a category to those photos. A category is kind of like a keyword, but a keyword, you have to go to every single photo and assign that category to, or that keyword to the photos. Categories are a little different. So I'm going to switch to a space called underwater. And when I switch to that space, everything about my Mylio library changes. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to show you that if I am in the public space, right there, there's 51,150 photos in my library. When I switch to the underwater space, there's only about 5,600 photos. And if I go to my different views now, like the calendar view, I don't see a lot of photos except for my underwater photos. So I can see any year during which I took photos. I started in 2003. I didn't take photos for a couple of years because life got in the way. But I've been very busy taking photos lately. So I can go to any one of those, and I can see all the photos that I took at any one time. With the calendar view, if I go to the map view, same thing. Notice all the other photos disappear, and it's only showing me photos that are part of the underwater categories. So anywhere I've been in the world taking underwater photos. If I go to the people view, most of the people go away. Only the people that are in underwater photos, which are mostly people that I've been diving with, you can see some of them are in dive attire, are appearing. Even the untagged container, which we didn't talk about, is going to only show me photos that correspond with the underwater category. Same with albums, same with folders. So when you switch to a space, you can limit your library to only certain kind of photos. Family versus a hobby. Work versus personal. You decide what those categories might be, and you create those spaces. And the way you assign a category to something is really easy. I'm going to switch back to the public space here, and I'll show you that if I go to my folder view, I have a folder called trips where the majority of my photos are. In every one of my trips, there's two folders. There's the land folder and there's the underwater folder. And if I show you the categorization of my underwater folder, there's have the underwater category assigned to them. So that means that all 450 photos get tagged with that category by me just clicking and assigning that category to a folder. So it's really pretty easy, but something I wanted you to see. We're running out of time, so I'm going to go a little bit faster here and make sure we cover everything. We talked about date. Title, caption is just metadata that you can add to photos, same as keywords, IPTC data, and copyright. Mylio follows all the IPTC standards, so that's where we write the metadata. Categories we talked about. We talked about geotagging. When it comes to people tagging, Mylio does create an automated to-do list, just like with everything else. All the photos or all the faces that Mylio finds that have not been assigned to a person go into the untagged container. And from there, you can either go one photo at a time and tag him. That's Alex. And Mylio is going to know, in most cases, who a person is. So I could just click the number 1 here if I wanted to go fast. But what's easier to do is from any container, in this case, is the untagged container, but I could go to a folder. I can go to a date in the calendar. I could go to an album, and I can launch something called bash face tagging. And when I do that, Mylio is going to aggregate all the photos of the same person and allow me to tag all those photos all at once. So here it's telling me I found 5 photos of that I think are Lucy, and it's correct. Those are Lucy. So I just click approve. And now those photos are tagged. Now on the next one, the first photo is correct, but this one is not little Benjito, is Lucy. So I'm going to correct that one, and then I'm going to approve. Same here. It's not Lily, it's Lucy. And I don't remember her name, which is why she's not tagged. I have to ask my daughter. That was at Lucy's birthday. But Mylio is aggregating all the remaining photos. If it finds that it's photos of the same person, it put them all at once. So you can just tag one of these photos, put the name and last name, create that container for that person, and then tag all those photos at once. So it's really very easy, and lots of tools and utilities for that work to get completed. All right. And you can edit as needed. I show you that there's some basic edits that you can do with Mylio. So I can go to any photo here. I have a little folder of photos that can be edited. So I can go to any photo and do some basic edits. There's things like auto color that's going to try to correct the color on a photo. Auto tone is going to try to correct the tonality of a photo. But you can also have more control of things like exposure and highlights, adding color or removing color from a photo. All of that, all of those basic edit functionality that you expect is there. When you want to edit something more precisely and have more in-depth photos, remember, Mylio Photos is a photo organization tool. We're not really about editing the image. We let you edit a lot of metadata, but when it comes to image editing, there's really good tools out there. We're not trying to compete with them because they do a really good job. What we do is we collaborate. So from Mylio, you can open any photo with any application in your computer that you like to use for editing, Lightroom Classic, Photoshop. I like the Topaz suite of tools like Topaz Photo AI or Denoise. So I can open any one of those right from Mylio, do what I need, and then save a copy back to Mylio, or save what we call the display image back to Mylio, which is going to get stacked on top of the original. So the original is always preserved. I can always go back, but I can have a version that has the edit that I did externally. All right, and we talked about tagging people. Let's very quickly, 3 minutes, talk about keeping your photos safe. And it's so easy to do it with Mylio that really you don't have to think about it too hard. The first thing, obviously, is consolidating your library. If half your photos are in one hard drive and half your photos are in one computer, and some of your photos are in cloud service A and some of your photos are in cloud service B, it's going to be much harder to keep them protected. So you bring them all together into one library. Show you how you do that with Mylio. And then you do something called a protection vault. And you'll notice in my library, I have 4 protection vaults. If I go here to something called the dashboard and devices, I can see all of my devices. These are all of the devices that I'm running the Mylio photo application in. And they each have different jobs. Down at the bottom, my drive and clouds have designations of being a vault. Those devices, anything designated to be a vault, is going to store the entirety of my library in full size, full resolution, including the database and catalog that has all of my organization. So I have 3 hard drives and 1 cloud service. If I lost all of my devices, if I lost every phone, every computer, etc., and I had nothing but this hard drive called Bluefin, I could buy a new computer, plug that hard drive, and I would be right back to everything that you saw today. Full size photos, full organization. I wouldn't lose anything. As a matter of fact, my house could burn down. I hope not. And because I have a cloud repository, I could buy new computers, log into my Mylio account, and Mylio would go, oh, you're working with this cloud service. Let me bring back your library to your new computer. And it would populate it for me. It's just that easy. Keep in mind, when it comes to protection, you want to file the 3-2-1 backup scheme, and what that stands for is you want to have at least 3 copies of your data, where the copies are in 2 different devices. Right? Having 3 copies on the same hard drive is not going to help you because hard drives die. So you want to have 3 copies where the copies are in at least 2 different devices and where one of those copies is in a different location. It's offsite. So you can see in my case, I have 4 copies of my library in 4 different devices, and one of those devices is offsite as a cloud repository. I could accomplish the same thing by, putting a hard drive at my mom's house and connect it to a computer there and having it synchronize my Mylio library, which some people do. The rest of my devices also have my full library. Notice some of them are not synchronized, like my iPad here. So if I turn my iPad on and I launch the Mylio application, that iPad will come online. It'll turn from gray to white, and it will start synchronizing the photos that is missing. It's missing 34 photos. So keeping your library in sync by simply turning the Mylio application on every device will also protect your photos. My iPad doesn't have the originals, but it has that optimized version of my photos, which is good for most uses. The only time you really need the original file is when you're printing it or when you're editing it outside of Mylio. The rest of the time, using the optimize really is the best of both worlds. Okay. So we explained what a protection vault is already. Things that make for a good protection vault are external hard drives, a computer that has enough storage or a lot of storage, or a cloud service. A phone doesn't make for a good protection vault. They don't have a lot of storage, much easier for them to get lost or stolen. So, all right. And finding photos fast. You kind of see already how easy it is to find photos based on the paradigm or when, where, who, or what is in the photo. But if you want to look for something specific, there's 2 tools that make that really, really good. The first one is called dynamic search. And in dynamic search, I just type something. So I could type monkey, and Mylio is going to find all the photos of monkeys, and it's going to find photos that have the text monkey in the photo. So see, this truck says Monkey Wrench Fabrications. So Mylio pulled it up because Mylio can read. You can also do very complex searches. So I could say, I want photos of JC and Lucy. And Mylio is going to find all the photos, 122, whereas in this case, my granddaughter and I. If I want photos where it's just the 2 of us, I can say, keep the face count, like the number of faces in the photos, to 2. And Mylio says, okay, there's 65 of those where there's nobody else in the photo except the 2 of you. And I could do more things. I could say, show me photos that were taken in Florida or in Puerto Rico, et cetera, et cetera. There's about 34 different parameters that you can use for creating complex searches. But you can also do very simple searches like just typing a word. And Mylio is going to look at all of that metadata, anything about the photo, and find those photos. The other thing is you can use something called quick filters. So remember that all photos view that we looked at earlier? In that view, we could scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll through our photos, which I don't find to be very useful. But using our quick filter technology, which quick filters work on any view, but I'm showing it to you in the all photos view, I can narrow down what I'm looking at. So let's say that I want to look at my best underwater photos. Well, my best underwater photos are probably going to be rated with 4 and 5 stars. They're going to have a category of underwater, so I can add that category. So just like when you go shopping on Amazon and you start filtering things out, you can do that with the quick filters. But I also know that some of my older cameras didn't have as good resolution as my newer cameras. So I can say, I want to be very specific about what camera I took the photo with. So I can go here by camera and say, I want to go to my newest camera, which is a Sony camera. Mylio is showing me all the different Sony cameras that are part of my library. I want this one, the 7R5. And here is all the photos that I have in my library that are underwater photos that I've rated 4 and 5 stars, where the photo was taken with this specific camera, the Sony 7R5. And just like that, I can go through these photos very quickly. So I went from 50,000 photos to what? A handful, right? Uh, so there you have it. Fast finding. We ran out of time. Allison, I don't know if we want to stay a few extra minutes and answer some questions. I'm sorry, I'm so long-winded and I took all the time, but I would love to volunteer to answer a few questions if we can.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, JC. That was very thorough. And I enjoyed seeing pictures of you with hair. My favorite view is also map view. I am a big fan of Mylio. I use it for my own photos and all the things. So I encourage all of you that are watching. There's a link in the chat if you want to download it and give it a try. I think there's a free trial that you can do. And I think that our person behind the scenes is going to pop in some questions for us to answer. So here we go. I've been a user for a few months. What I'm looking for is to narrow down pictures, just sets of individual people, so I can find pictures that just have those sets of people and not any others.
All right. Well,
I think you literally just answered this, but
I
if you
did,
could
yeah.
elaborate a little, yeah.
So the when you use quick filters, so you can use quick filters to narrow by person, right? So I can go here, see where it says by person. It shows me the entire list of people, and I don't have to go through the list, right? I can start typing a name.
We can't actually see your screen. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Okay.
there we go.
Perfect.
So let me go back then. When you use quick filters, you can narrow by person and you can start typing a name. So I can say Lucy or Sarah, and it'll show me all the people that have that name. And I can add multiple people. So I can say Sarah, and then I can say, I can type my last name here and say by person JC. Notice that one filter replaces the other unless I pin it. So there, I pinned that one. So now I can find Sarah again, my wife, and say by person Sarah Cash. Well, what Mylio is doing with quick filters is what we call an OR operator. So Mylio in quick filter view is showing me photos of JC or Sarah. So if you want photos that have both people, you have to use the AND operator, and that you have to do in dynamic search. So Bennett, what you want to do is you want to go into dynamic search and just start typing the name of the two people. And you can get you can start very simply. So just JC and Sarah, and Molly's going to say there's 1,539 photos that have JC and Sarah in the photo. Now, some of these photos have other people in them. So if I want to eliminate the other people, I can say, show me photos of JC and Sarah where the face count, the number of faces in the photo equals 2. And when I do that, it shows me only 896. And then I can narrow it further, like if I want only photos taken with a Canon camera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you go to our manual, which you can access directly from the help menu, and you go to the appendix area, there is a custom search and filter expressions. And this article explains all of the different ways in which you can do searches, but most importantly, all the explicit terms that you can use to create this semi-complex searches. Really, typing JC and Sarah face count 2 is not that hard. So that's really all you have to do. Once you have found those photos, so here I have JC and Sarah face count 2, I can view them all. I can select them all, and then I can add them to an album. So I can say add to album. I can navigate to the top level of the albums, create an album, and say Valentine's brownie points, and create that album. Mylio selects it, continue. Now when I go to my album view, there will be an album called Valentine Brownie Points with all the photos of my wife and I all in one place. So it's pretty easy.
I think she'll appreciate that.
I've used that trick too many times. She's on to me now.
Yeah. Next question. I'll shorten it a little bit. How does Mylio work with Apple Photos? And I want to add on because there's another question in the chat, but it goes with it. Can
Mhm.
you have multiple people using Mylio at the same time with multiple devices, multiple Apple accounts?
Yeah,
How does that
yeah.
work?
So what happens when you add an Apple device, particularly a phone or a tablet, is that during the onboarding process, there's going to be a screen that says, do you want to add the camera roll from this device to Mylio Photos? And you're going to, and the box, there's a little checkbox, and that checkbox is going to be checked already. So you leave it checked. And when you click next, Mylio is going to ask permission to access the Apple Photos library. You're going to give it full access unless you want to limit which photos. But if you limit which photos, then new photos won't come in, only the photos that you selected. But if you give it full access, Mylio will create a folder in Mylio Photos and in the file system of your devices called Apple Photos. And you'll see that I have multiple devices. I have iPad, iPhone, my MacBook library, my iPad mini library. I could just as easily have my wife install Mylio and sign into my Mylio account, and her phone, Sarah's iPhone, would show up here. So you can add multiple Apple Photos libraries that way. And I could use spaces like if my wife didn't want to see my underwater photos, I could use categorization and spaces to create a space that only shows our family photos and photos from her phone. So when she opens, and then I can assign that to a device. So here under devices, I can, I could take this iPad mini and say, I want this to be specific, only personal photos or only a specific space that I created, and I can lock that device to that. So that's how you can use multiple Apple Photos from multiple Apple IDs, but also how you can lock certain parts of the library so only certain parts are visible or accessible. And spaces lets you do a lot of things. Like, if my wife did want to see my best underwater photos so she can show people, but I didn't want her to have the ability to edit or delete those photos, that's something that I can designate on that space. I will say spaces and the ability to create custom spaces is part of our family and team plans, which are not quite released yet. They're coming out next month. Uh, so something to be aware of, that you're going to need a different Mylio plan to access that particular feature. But yes, multiple Apple Photos, no problem, or multiple Apple Photos libraries, no problem, and sharing the same library with multiple family or team members is possible. All right, what else you got?
Yeah. Is there a limit to how many devices can be on the account?
No, there's no limit to devices and there's no limit to libraries. I think I've seen accounts with 47 devices is the most I've seen. And I've seen accounts with 4 million photos. Those are very rare. We have about a dozen photos that have more than, or a dozen accounts that have more than 2 million photos. But we have hundreds, if not thousands, of accounts that have um, well over 100,000 photos in them. So.
That actually brings up a good question that I saw in the chat too about the vaults. Could you elaborate on what exactly is stored in a vault? Does the vault have to be connected at all times? And
Sure.
sort of some of the best practices there?
Right. So a vault is a designation, right? So I can designate any one of my devices to be a vault. And what that designation tells Mylio is that on this device, I want you to save everything. My thumbnails, my previews. Previews is the optimized version of the photos. My full-size originals, all of my organization, all of my metadata, everything gets saved to that device. Now, what device you decide to designate as a vault is up to you, but it has to be a device that can fit everything, right? So it should be a device that has a lot of storage, like an external hard drive or a cloud service. Keep in mind, if you have a very large library, putting everything on the cloud can get costly. We also have our own cloud service called Secure Cloud and a service called Mylio Drive. Mylio Drive, by default, it's a service that's included with the regular Mylio plan. And when you use Mylio Drive, Mylio is going to store the optimized version of your photo. So if you look at my Mylio Drive, you'll notice that thumbnails and optimize have a green line in there, meaning those versions of my photos have been saved to Mylio Drive. The original is grayed out. I need Mylio Drive Plus in order to save originals. But because I already have a different cloud device called Backblaze that is storing my originals, I haven't used Mylio Drive Plus. But again, a vault is a designation. What device you use depends on your preferences. I recommend using multiple hard drives. Hard drives are like car tires. It's not if they fail, it's when they fail. That's why I have 3. And I do recommend having a cloud device. And if you're concerned about privacy, you can use Mylio to have your data encrypted before it goes to that cloud service. So even if you're using something like Google Drive, Google is not going to be able to extract any personal information from your data and use it for advertisement purposes because everything's encrypted. The devices do have to be connected and online in order for them to synchronize. So sometimes what I do with 2 of my hard drives that are smaller is I keep one online all the time and I keep the other one in a fireproof safe, and I switch them every other week or so. Right now they're both connected, but you have a lot of flexibility when it comes to it.
And every time you make a change anywhere, that goes to all of the vaults.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Perfect.
Yeah. If I went and edited a photo right now, so if I took this photo and I cropped it, and I said done, you'll notice that Mylio is creating a new version of the optimized image, and it's pretty fast being sent to all of the devices. And so now Grouper is one of my hard drives, and the Mylio drive are the only ones missing. The MacBook Pro is offline, so it doesn't have it. But it's just that simple. Mylio takes care of it. You just have to make sure the things get connected. So at some point, the devices that are not connected in my account, like my iPad mini and my Pixel phone, see they're missing some files. They need to be connected so that they get updated.
Okay. 2 more questions, and then we're going to wrap up. I will say, if we didn't get to your question, feel free to add it into the comments of the video on YouTube, and somebody will get back to you. It might be me, it might be another photo manager, but somebody can answer questions there as well. So 2 more questions. First, how many layers can you do for year an event? I'm guessing that means, how many events can you have?
Oh, gosh. I don't think there's a limit to the number of events. Events are virtual. It's just a little piece of information in the database. So you can have as many events as you want. Like right here in 2022, if I click, if I click on any one year and I open the information panel, it's going to show me all the events. So different years are going to have different events. I don't use events as much as other users do, mostly because I organize in a different way. But yeah, there's no limit to the number of events.
I love events. I color code them. So all of my travel are red, and other family ones are kind of blue. It makes scrolling through the library, the calendar, a really kind of a fun experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Last question. How easy is it to share from Mylio? So you showed us the web gallery, but what about text or email?
Oh gosh, well, it depends. It depends how you want to share, right? We have so many options for sharing. So I can take any one photo and I can share it in a variety of ways. I can go here and I can obviously export it, which is going to allow me to have a file that I can put somewhere else. But I can do things like emailing it or messaging it. Because I'm on an Apple device, I can use AirDrop to send it to another Apple device, phone or tablet or whatever. I can create a shareable link, which is the share albums that you use. So I can post it directly to different services like Family Search, Frame.io, which is a new service that Adobe and a consortium of other photo industry companies is using. I can post it to Flickr, ViewBug Printique for printing purposes. You can upload photos directly to Printique. And there's more. Like if you're using an Apple device, you have even more options. I think my phone's still being shared here. So if I show you my phone again, I have even more options to share from my phone by just clicking the sharing interface. Anything that's built into the operating system is going to be available as a share in Mylio. So I can share to people via text. I can share to applications that are part of my settings, and then I can do all the other things that I can do with, for example, Apple Photos or Photos on an Android gallery. So a lot of it depends on what device you're on, but the options are almost limitless. So
Great.
I
Okay,
could
I'm
do a
gonna.
webinar just on sharing
Yeah, I
for an
am gonna
hour.
add. I'm gonna throw in one more question. We're gonna do it super fast because it's really important.
Yeah,
But the question is, can you always go back to the original? If you make changes to a photo, can you take it back to
absolutely.
the original?
Absolutely. So take this photo right here. I edited this photo externally using Photoshop. And I can see right here on the file name that there's 3 versions of this file. There's the ARW, which is the original raw file from the camera. There's the JPEG, which is the version of that photo that I created in Photoshop. And there's an XMP file. The XMP file is what's keeping metadata changes or Mylio internal visual edits, is keeping track of that. So in this case, to go back to the original, I would say, Mylio, show me this file externally in my hard drive, and I can choose one of the hard drives that are connected to this computer. And Mylio would just open a Finder view, and I don't know why it's taking so long to load. This is Apple now, not loading. There it is. So there's the display image, which is the one Mylio is showing me, but there's also, Mylio has preserved the original file, and I can access and show you that file. It's a really big file. It's 65 megabytes. For a photo that I have edited directly in Mylio, like that photo that I cropped earlier, or any photo, really, if I take this photo here of Lucy and I do a quick edit on it, like, I turn it black and white, I can always go back to the original with one button. I can even have Mylio show me a before and after of my edits. So it's very, very easy to go back to the original. Everything that you do in Mylio is non-destructive, meaning we never touch the original file.
Great. So, thank you so much, JC.
Yeah,
this was like a masterclass crash course in Mylio. As I said earlier, there is a link in the chat if you'd like to download it and take a look for yourself for free. I highly encourage you to do it. I switched to Mylio a few years ago from Lightroom, and I use that as my master. Now, I take photos with my iPhone. They go into my camera roll there, but Mylio is where I do all the work.
Yeah.
So that link is in the chat. If we did not get to your questions, please, throw them down at the bottom of the video and somebody will get back to you. And if you've enjoyed this video, please, hit like and subscribe. And JC, I just want to thank you so much. This was great. Even I learned new things. I always do. And hopefully you'll be back.
I'll always be back. Always happy to do this. These are fun.
They are fun. And I hope our audience had fun too. So yeah, please like the video, add your questions, interact, and join us for the next Kathy's Live, which if I were Kathy, I'd be able to tell you when that is, but I think it's next month. So it happens when you're asked to fill in at the last minute. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, JC. And